Look at what the Hammonds have gone through. In case you don't know, this is a really complex deal, especially if you're not a rancher or you've never been around ranch lands. BLM is Bureau of Land Management. This is, I think, again, even unconstitutional. This is the United States government saying, oh, all of this land, it all belongs to the United States government. And we'll give you the right to graze your cattle on this land. And everybody has to, I mean, I have BLM land that is adjoining my land, and this was one of the problems that I have. I live in a national forest. You know, what happens if you're in a national forest? I have to go through the national forest to get onto my property. Does that sound like a problem for anybody? So you're living on a national forest, or you're living on BLM land, or you're living adjacent to BLM land. If the government, like the Hammonds, they decided you can't use any of the water, well, they had water rights on that land. The government decides they're going to take away their water rights. Well, now their cattle don't. Now I've got cattle and I don't have any water. Well, you also can't graze on the BLM land. Well, why can't I graze on the BLM? Everybody grazes on the BLM land. You can't graze. Well, now my cattle have no water and they have no food.
And it's not like the government is using it for their cattle.
Right.
Government doesn't own cattle.
Correct. And it's healthy. If it's done right, it keeps the land healthy. So the government just started shutting them down. Then the government says that they can't even drive on the BLM. They can't use an access road to get to their land. They can't use that access road. They sue, the Hammonds sue and say, wait a minute, this is a county road, this is not BLM. Apparently that goes and turns in their favor that it is a county road. It's not BLM land, but they've been going through all kinds of stuff. So then there's a fire. And to prevent the fire, and this, again, if you live back east, this is hard to understand because barely anybody understands it out in the West. But if you're my age, you grew up with grandparents who are farmers who understand how to use the land. We don't do controlled burns anymore. The reason why whole states burn down is because we don't do controlled burns. It is perfectly natural for a lightning strike to hit the ground and burn a forest down to the ground. That's nature. If you continue to put fires out over and over and over and over again, and you don't do controlled burns, all of the leaves, all of the branches, all of the underbrush that has died is just nothing but tinder. And so there's a lightning strike, and it spreads everywhere. That's why you have controlled burns. So there was a controlled burn. They asked permission from the BLM. Can we burn this?
1 acre.
1 acre?
1 acre.
The BLM said yes. They burn it. Then there's a dispute over, did they really have the right to burn it, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's another fire. This is a lightning strike. And they decide that they're going to do a back burn. And what that is they set another fire going the other direction to put a ring basically around their ranch and around their house. It burns out. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It burns out. I think that one does get out of control. But
is that the one that would burn like 150 acres or something? Yeah,
which is nothing. If you're looking at a 6,000 acre ranch, 150 acres is nothing. 6,000 acres. It got out of control for 150, but it saved the house, it saved the land, and in fact, later they had testimony that said, and this is true, ask anybody who knows anything about the earth, the fire actually did enhance the value of the BLM land in the long run.
And the BLM apparently admitted that at the beginning.
Okay.
And then new management came.
This is where I want to go back to the book, Witches. There is obviously something going on here that is beyond the law. Because what's happened is they nailed this family. This family looks like a normal, decent family. Look at the pictures of these guys.
You got them on arson, terrorist charges.
Yeah. Put on their most wanted list for arsonist. I mean, horrible stuff. Okay. So they go to court, and the judge says, there's a minimum sentence of 5 years because the government charged you as a terrorist. They're not terrorists. They were trying to save their home.
Yeah, and the way the law was written after Oklahoma City is anyone who sets a fire on federal land is charged under this terrorist. Anyone who has arson on federal land is charged under this terrorist statute that they created after Oklahoma City.
So the judge said, look, I'm looking at this case. This is not terrorism, and they didn't do it exactly right. So I'm going to give the father 3 months, and I'm going to give the son a year. They served their time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They served their time. This is not, I'm not going to jail. You'll have to take me guns a-blazing. They served their time. Then new management at the Bureau of Land Management. What, 4 years later?
Mm-hmm.
They come back and now they say, wait a minute, that sentence wasn't big enough. They've already served their time. The government says that's not big enough. Now, what's the problem?
Double jeopardy.
What's the problem? The problem is the government says this judge has a minimum sentence of 5 years. They both needed to spend 5 years in jail. Well, you know who the problem is then with? The judge. Put the judge in jail.
Yep.
They received their sentence. They went and they served their sentence. They paid their due. As according to a judge, if the judge broke the law, then the judge needs to go to jail. What's the minimum sentence for the judge? It's not their fault. The judge did it in his discretion. Then you walked away. If you would have said at the time, wait a minute, it's a 5-year sentence, and you would have brought this up before they served their time, it would have been different. But they served their time. It's double jeopardy. This is absolutely wrong what they're doing to these people. Absolutely wrong. And again, I go back to witches. I go back to another book I read. I read a lot of books this vacation. 2 books you should read. Witches, because you'll understand the psyche of where we're headed. And the second one that I read was Hitler's Art Thief. It is absolutely fascinating how the laws were made and manipulated by the government in Nazi Germany to be able to empower those who were in favor and to screw those who were not in favor. And that is exactly what is happening to us. We are no longer a nation of laws. We are a nation of men. That's exactly the opposite of what George Washington